Hi guys, this is going to be a shortish video where I finish off the model, the BTR 80A. A couple of figures I've got, I think they're ICM Afghanistan era figures, and do a really simple diorama for it as well. So welcome back if you've been on my channel before. Recently I've been splitting diorama builds with the model, so it wouldn't get too long, but there wasn't much to build in this. It's the Zvezda version of the model. BTR 80 came about in 1985, so it was the first used in Afghanistan, and I suppose it was from seeing on the news the rusted out versions which were left in Afghanistan, and all the news footage recently, which made me think of elevating it to the top of the list of things to do next. I've loved this vehicle for a while, but I was surprised how low profile it was. So I've got the Fuchs, the modern German version, the contemporary German version, West Germany version of this vehicle, which is 6 wheels. This is 8, but the size of the Fuchs against it is quite a slim and low vehicle, this one. I had problems when it came to putting tank riders on it, because there's actually not a lot of places available for it. So if you've got some tank riders and Zvezdas or any other version of this, during the build, look at where you might fill certain areas and not add certain parts, just to allow the figures to sit on it, because I think I botched it together at the end a little bit. So I was at the end of the build. The turret with the large caliber machine gun and the coaxial machine gun had a feature that you had to build the lock on the bottom so that you could put it in place and twist it 90 degrees and it would lock into the body. And whether I built it wrong or whether it was just faulty, it didn't work for me. It didn't meet up between the piece that went in and the socket. So I snapped that off and I've glued the turret on, which I've not had to do before. Even with Zvezda models, usually you can make it fit together, but it was too fiddly with this one. There's a lot of parts on this that are very flimsy plastic, very thin, and my build after this was an Airfix 135 scale build, the Crusader that I've started, and just straight away even the internal structure of the Crusader has got more plastic on it than this whole model combined. This is about paper thin in places, especially the hatches over the front windscreen. They were like paper, and some of the other doors and hatches. So please don't purchase this one thinking that you can have doors and hatches open, and soldiers coming in and out. Obviously there's no internal detail, but the actual hatches themselves, they're too thin to be realistic. And anyway, I'm just doing it as olive green, some oil paint weathering, and then use these still quite new mud and sand Vallejo pigments that I bought recently. And what I really wanted to do with this model was create a two-tone on the wheels and on the chassis of mud, wet mud and dry mud together, as you see on vehicles that have gone into mud and then dried and then gone into mud again. So you'll see at the end, see if I've succeeded with that. But yeah, pretty simple. Aside from the lights, the headlights, headlamps were quite fiddly and the instructions were not clear, and then part of the cowling that goes over the back of the exhaust outlet, on one side it clashes with the handle on a door hatch, so I had to leave that off. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, just follow the instructions. So I put some black and some burnt sienna, I think it was, with some white spirit, just to create some shadowing around things and just to pick out the details. I think usually I do some dry brushing before I do this stage, but this time I did a couple of base coats of olive green and then some black brown sort of pin wash stuff, and then when that had dried I went back to the acrylic and I mixed an underused colour that I have the light grey green sort of colour that the underside of Spitfires and Hurricanes is, and I don't make planes anymore, so I had a big pot of that, and I mixed that with the olive green and made a really nice highlight colour. So yeah, that was like RAF pale green for the undercarriage of planes. There is a lot of detail on this. As you saw right at the beginning of the video, some of the rails and grab handles on the side of the vehicle are so flimsy, they're like string, and there's no rigidity to them at all. So I brought them off and just used a couple of pieces of wire that I had. So yeah, pin wash effect sort of done, turret glued on, and there's a slate grey amongst the Vallejo mud and sand dust pigments. Now the axles of the four axles of the 8 wheels are a bit overly complicated. Each of the 8x8 wheels in real life are kind of self-governed, move independently, and the way that they'd replicated that in the model is a little bit difficult, and the plans, the instructions don't really show it very clearly, so just be aware of that. I actually left the axles out because it wasn't even clear on the instructions that there was a part there. And I left out some of the supporting stays just because I knew it'd be behind the wheel and they were too fiddly, and they had lots of flash plastic on them as well. So then dry brushing, I did combine a wet application on the wheels with dry brushing, and at the moment there's just slate grey on the wheels, and then the Vallejo set includes sand or dust, a very pale colour, so I'm brushing that over as a kind of highlight addition to the light green that I've already picked out some of the lighter sun-bleached features on the top of the model. I made a lot of footage of this one actually, guys, and some of it was usable, some of it was a bit fiddly and duplicated itself as well. And yeah, I think I had a few hours of footage from this one. But I hope you think that I've shown, you know, some ways of taking the model from the point where the instructions finish on to being a bit of a more realistic vehicle and a realistic way of finishing it. So on the top surface, more than anywhere else, I've used the sand and the slate grey just to kind of give some sun effects and some highlight effects, but also obviously to add dirt to like a battle weary vehicle. I was putting it just on a plain dirty Afghanistan-like roadway, and I was going to do the figures on top as Afghanistan-style soldiers from the 80s. I think probably some of the problems experienced at the moment in Afghanistan are down to that invasion by the Soviets, and the damage they did to the infrastructure. So it was quite a difficult one to handle, I would say, because there's a certain amount of flimsiness to it. So I think the ICM, they were just 4 figures, very, very similar figures. Didn't come with lots of packs, which was a shame because I'd have been able to incorporate them onto the model. Didn't come with lots of machinery, alternative machinery. They had AK-47 assault rifles. I think they were AK-47s or a later variation. An officer and 3 men, all wearing, well, virtually identical uniforms. So obviously mostly it's just an olive green for that kind of era soldier, with a grey collar and a grey winter hat. But I'd seen some light green and dark green camouflage in photographs online, so I did a bit of that as well. Did some variation. And then I use some of the Vallejo pin wash black just to pick out some of the details, and especially on the face, if you dilute it a little bit with the water, it just picks out the mouth, the nose, without being too heavy. If you like these videos, guys, feel free to click like and subscribe to see future ones. About 3 videos ago I did a roundup of all my future plans and all the models that I have in my cupboard. Next one, as I said, Airfix Crusader, and in an urban setting in Normandy, France. So not finalised the ideas for that yet, but I'm going to start working on that pretty soon. And the season's changing. The weather's gone downhill. The evenings are going darker and darker, and the rain has started here in the UK. So hopefully means I'll have a bit more time in the room, relaxing, keeping warm, and not trying to squeeze things in, which this one was a little bit like. Yeah, I think if you go back, I've got the Vietnam diorama with the M48 and some figures. Before that, the trench diorama with just figures and the ruins of a church, and before that an update of the different vehicles that I'm building in the near future. If you want to check that video out. So I wanted to get the distance between the distance of the axles, so I didn't end up trying to force the wheels into ruts that were not realistic. So I just rinsed the plaster off the wheels after I'd positioned the vehicle, because, like I've said, I was interested in really making the wheels as realistic as I could. That was part of my plan for this one. I love it when you see vehicles with two-tone mud on. So I jumped a little bit there, but you see the plaster's just simply painted with beige, buff and khaki grey, sorry. The wheels have got the wet mud of, I think it's burnt sienna, and the dry mud, which is just sand, and the figures as well. I've tried to use some of the powders some of the pigments on the figures as well, just to bring the whole thing together. I added a little bit of cable, even though that wasn't in the model, and I'd seen photographs where it had just been draped on the front of the vehicle, on the kind of breakwater paddle that you can't set that up for when it's going into water. It's not realistic. The back of the front of the vehicle is not designed to go flat or up. It just has to be flat. Some stills. Yeah, so let me know what you think, guys. It was a pretty quick build, and a little bit fiddly, little bit flimsy in places, and yeah, but it was just a simple idea for a diorama. Thanks for watching. Please leave a comment. Just let me know if you've made this model or what you're up to at the moment. And yeah, cheers, guys.